Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to another episode of the Bright Now podcast. We're recording this on Saturday, June 22nd at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. My name is Dash, and I am the Jerry West to my Elgin Baylor. He's got just as much sauce as Walt Frazier. TJ, how are you doing today, brother? And what are we talking about?
Doing fantastic, man. As you can see, repping the Bill Walton shirt. May he, rest in peace. Shout out to Bill Walton. there we go. Both icons in American history, Ice Spice and Bill Walton. But today we're going to be breaking down the Suns' point guard search, plus checking in on the team's overall vibes as we head into the draft. Then we're going to discuss the polarizing Celtics championship run. It seems to have pissed off a lot of people for whatever reason, so we're going to be breaking down why we think that and just our overall thoughts on their championship run. Very clearly an end-to-end dominating performance, but of course this is the Bright Now podcast, so we got to do a Suns check-in. It feels like we've had a while since we've really talked about our own team in a real way, but the latest news coming out sounds like the Suns are near the front of the pack to land Kyle Lowry. Currently, you can get odds at plus 300 to land him. We're just behind the two LA teams, right ahead of Toronto, New Orleans, and Golden State. So I guess my first question for you, why are all the teams that want Kyle Lowry ass?
Man, I think I do think it's just like a last resort type of thing, like a real plan Z. If you're trying to go ahead and just get whatever scraps of someone who used to be like a serviceable point guard. He still is coming off the bench. But yeah, the LA and the Clippers team, those teams are jokes. Anybody who says, also by the way, at this point, I have more faith in the Los Angeles Lakers than I do the Clippers at this point, just in the NBA timeline. They're officially cursed. Looking over and over to see the last couple of years, they're just completely cashed out.
Maybe former agents aren't great at managing a basketball roster. I don't know. He won a championship. But I just don't know how much of it has really been Frank Vogel and Darvin Ham's fault. And now we get JJ Redick thrown into the fire. So that'll be fun for them.
I know. Do we want to talk about that at all for like 30 seconds? The JJ
thing? Yeah, we definitely should. I feel like we had just talked. It felt like we knew this for so long, and then there was just a red herring of Dan Hurley being thrown in there for maybe 3 days. Do you think that it's a good hire? And secondly, do you think they should? And do you think they will continue to do the podcast?
I like that second question more. I think. Well, starting off with, I think it's a good hire. Man, we look over the course of history of first-time head coaches, and there's a lot of bad ones that pop up.
Yeah, so first-time head coaches, we've seen LeBron have success with them for whatever reason, but that's really just because he has been the greatest player of his generation, with guys like Ty Lue stepping in and winning a championship, going to the finals with David Blatt, like just real nobodies that he's brought to the table. And JJ Redick has a lot more juice, a lot more clout in NBA circles than either of those guys. So I think the players will ultimately respect him to a degree. The Lakers, that Lakers coaching job is just very unforgiving. It was unforgiving when it wasn't a LeBron team. And LeBron is, for lack of a better word, he's kind of a coach killer. Like he hasn't been blessed with a Phil Jackson like Kobe and Michael Jordan were, which could go either way. Maybe it's his fault, maybe it's not. But he runs guys out of town, and I just worry that JJ Redick's going to be another one of those guys. And that's why I have the real question about why the podcast, if continuing, is a real question for them, because they start the season 3-8. That's going to be a really weird conversation to hear you guys start breaking down film and talking about stuff. Like that's just going to be that's not good.
Yeah, pure awkwardness just right off the bat. I do think I agree with you. The only thing is with if it's a good coaching decision or not is it's such a tough job. And we even saw it with Dan Hurley. I know he's asked to leave an amazing situation where he's winning back-to-back titles. He's got his guys. He's got full control of coaching. We talked about on a podcast previously that Dan Hurley is just one of those guys that, he's a very high energy, very high passion kind of guy. And that's in a positive sense. And he's willing to get on somebody's ass right away. And just the difference between a collegiate player, a guy who's a walk-on, who's trying to, make his spot on the team, he's more than okay with getting screamed at, or a guy that's looking, maybe to play overseas. He's going to feel okay. That's not making crazy amount of money. I mean, NIL money is a thing. But just in the sense that NBA players are making more than the coach. It's going to feel a little weird to have some guy screaming at you that's, making less than you.
That's never been at that level before, too, right?
Yeah. It has, quote-unquote, no clue on how to get it done. And I think that in terms of answering the question, I just don't know who else really could have filled in that position. I mean, theoretically, you could have asked Monty Williams. He's been in the finals, but he's also been the leader of a 28 losing streak team. So, I mean...
To be fair, I still like Monty and think he is a good NBA coach. Like his wife just got diagnosed with cancer last year when he's going on this run and didn't even really want to coach the Pistons, and they gave him a Godfather level offer that you can't refuse. And now he gets paid.
His first, is this his second wife?
Yes, because the first one died in the car crash, and now his wife has cancer. Yes. And so everyone's going on TV and just fucking killing Monty Williams. I just learned about it recently, too. I had just seen something about it last week. Fuck? And we've just been massacred. I'm like, dude, he's not a bad coach. And everyone was like, oh, well, he played Killian Hayes over Jaden Ivey. Bro, Jaden Ivey wasn't changing those fucking games, brother, with all due respect. So I'm still... Shout out to Monty he has the best job in the world for the next 7 years, getting paid $65 million to not coach.
Yeah, to sit on his ass. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, Monty, get your bag. Holy shit, I didn't know that. He's oh my god, bad luck Brian moment. Holy shit.
No, for real. He must be one of God's strongest soldiers because goddamn, he's got some tough battles.
Jesus, but let's go back to the Suns talk here. Talking about Kyle Lowry, I wanted to ask you, TJ. After that Bright Side of the Suns article, we're talking about how they have the plus 300 odds. Does getting Kyle Lowry move the needle in any meaningful way in any way at all?
No, he's a good culture ad, I would say, if guys are going to listen and actually kind of rally behind him in any sort of way. I think also mentioned in that Bright Side of the Sun article, they talk about how, if we do draft a point guard in the first round, like if we take Tyler Kolek or Isaiah Collier potentially, it makes more sense to bring in that veteran point guard. I always just do like having a veteran presence for your rookie position. So when he's coming off the bench, he's just a little bit more confident. But the author of the article had also joked about how James Jones never drafts who the fans think that he should or that we have a need for. So while we say we need a big or a point guard, he's going to take some 6'6" forward, right? So I think that's where the concern is. And so we do have to see how the draft is going to unfold. 100% I think they need to take a point guard. I would love it if we got Tyler Kolek. I watched a good chunk of his games this year. And not a good chunk, but, see him every now and then. And seems like he has what it takes to be like a floor leader at a minimum. It can be like a TJ McCollum kind of point guard. TJ McConnell, fucking McCollum. But I just won't love Kyle Lowry on the court for more than 25 minutes a night. And if we signed him, he would need to be like a 30-minute game guy.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. Speaking on the draft, I mean, I know you said you want to get Collier. Is there anybody else you're looking at? I know you're a huge Zach Edey guy, and you really want the Suns to grab him at that 22nd pick. Is there anybody else that's really you're eyeballing?
Not particularly. Like right in our range, we do have so Tyler Kolek. They got the Ringer draft guide has him at 21. Isaiah Collier at 19. There's the big man out of Indiana, Khalil Ware. But that's the problem is when this draft just doesn't have that top level talent. Like this guy he's ranked 20th on this board. A normal year, he's like the 28th, 30th best guy. Yeah. So we have to have those reasonable expectations going into it. We better not fucking take Bronny. I almost said it as like a joke that we should take him, but we just could not put that into the air. He is not ready to be an NBA player, and we actually need somebody that can get meaningful minutes their rookie year. Because you look at our cap table and you look at just jumping ahead a little bit, but some of the other roster updates. Like Eric Gordon might not be coming back. That saves us $3 million if he doesn't. Eubanks already declined his option. But even with just our 10,
you're pissed about.
Even just with our 10 guys right now, we're $16 million into the second apron. So we need a guy on a cheap contract who can be an impact player. And that's why I think a little bit older point guard Tyler Kolek's 23 as a rookie. I think he is kind of the guy that we need to go with.
Yeah. Okay. I like it. Yeah, they're talking about just any of the overall roster updates. Just as you mentioned, Eric Gordon might be leaving the team. Drew Eubanks exploring his option in free agency. There's going to be a little bit more roster differential this year, and we saw the exact same thing last year with a completely flipped. I think 3 or 4 guys were on the team from last year before that. Does that make you nervous in any which way, or is that just the way that we have to exist for the next couple years until we inevitably fall to the bottom of the conference?
Yeah, I think you're right there, where we don't have many other options. You look through the point guards that are still available. We got Pat Bev, Lonzo, Chris Dunn, Aaron or Justin Holiday, Jose Alvarado is a restricted free agent. None of those guys totally move the needle for us and are probably too expensive for the most part. And so that's why we're just going to have to fiddle around the edges until eventually, Book, Beal, and Durant's contracts run up, because those guys just you could trade Booker and Durant. We shouldn't. And you can't trade Beal. So that's just where, we're just stuck in that sort of that purgatory where that we always have just dreaded, being in the same spot as the Chicago Bulls, who, we got to talk about that shitty trade too. Oh my God.
Oh my God. Do we want to talk about that real quick?
Let's finish. Do you have any thoughts on those Suns roster updates that we talked about? I guess that there's not much more to say, really.
No, I do. Let's put a pin in it. Let's save the Giddey talk for the end, the Giddey Caruso talk, because I do want to bridge to this next topic right here of TJ, we haven't exactly spoken since the Boston Celtics destroyed everybody in their path to become NBA champions. And before we do talk about them, let's keep on with the Suns talk. I wanted to go over how different both teams are and their ideas for success. We look at this squad right here. We see that they have 2 homegrown talents that they have absolutely built around and done whatever they can to get the perfect role players around them. Going ahead and trading away Marcus Smart, the heart and soul of the team, to go ahead and get Kristaps Porzingis, to go ahead and meddle around, to go ahead and get Drew Holiday for trading Malcolm Brogdon. This team right here has made all the right moves, and it's just a continued streak of excellency that we've seen from this squad, and that's just not what we've seen from the Phoenix Suns at all. Just manufacturing a synthetic team, to say the least, like a straight up AI body put together team right here is the Phoenix Suns, and it just hurts me. It hurts me a lot right here. What would you say some of the main differences you've seen? Is it the GM? I like James Jones for a long time, but is Brad Stevens just that fucking guy?
Yeah, I think it's just total night and day in terms of approaches to building the roster. We were just so obsessed with making the splashiest moves we could the last couple of years, and Boston was really and by all accounts, getting Drew Holiday and Porzingis are splashy deals, but they did it in the right way, I guess, with moving those tertiary guys on the edge, moving those role players, but keeping their core intact and just building a culture of they didn't. They went to 6 conference finals in a row, and people were screaming at them to blow it up. They're like, "Oh, you can't get it done, can't get it done." And they're like, "No, we just need more reps. Our guys are still, 25 and 26, 27, whatever it is now." They understood that, and understood that the more repetitions they get, the more lumps you take in the playoffs, the more likely you're going to be able to overcome them later. And our team just had the complete opposite in terms of chemistry. If you watch those Boston games, there's so many countless possessions where all 5 guys in the court touch it and are constantly moving and cutting, passing up good shots for great shots. And ours, we're just a team full of ball stoppers, just a team full of black holes looking to get their own, do whatever they want. On the defensive end, their coordination and their way, it's like they're all tied on a puppet string together. And when one guy moves, somebody else is there to fill the spot. Something that we just absolutely did not see with, Durant, Booker, Beal, all taking plenty of defensive possessions off. Brown and Tatum, specifically in the playoff run, never did that. And that just speaks to the level of unselfishness that those guys bred. I know people were trying to sow some doubt in between Tatum and Brown and start talking about Brown being the best player. Jason Kidd tried to throw some magic into that pot, and it just didn't work because those guys seemingly have a really good relationship together. And when you bring a guy in like Drew Holiday, who's just every team in the NBA should want Drew Holiday, every team, no matter what, he just fits into any system, any roster. They're just unselfish, and that's why they really went on a not. I know we're gonna break down their run a little bit more in depth, but just a dominant performance end to end this whole season.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about it. I mean, they finished out the playoffs being 16-3. It felt like that there was no genuine competition in their way throughout the entirety of the playoffs. No matter how hard I tried to convince myself that the Dallas Mavericks stood some kind of chance, or at least to make it close. But I mean, going into this, TJ, does this fall under like an all-time run? People keep comparing this run to like the 07 or 03 Spurs, but they lost 4 and 8 games in the playoffs in those years respectively. But I also understand the West is a little bit tougher, so that's why I'm feeling weird in the middle here. Is this like a top 10 dominant run? Are we comparing this to like those 82 Sixers where they only lost one game, the Lakers where they went through and only lost one game? Like, are they just right behind that category?
So I did a little homework on that as well, and looking at some of those runs, because in my mind, one of the thoughts that jumped into me is like, this is kind of stealing from Bill Simmons a little bit, but he called James Harden the new Karl Malone, where you see in his stats in 30 years, you're going to look back and be like, wow, he's the best player ever. And it's like, hey, well, we were there, and it just didn't actually feel that way in the moment. And so I think this is kind of the Karl Malone of championship runs, where in paper on 30 years, it's going to be like, whoa, look at their net rating in the regular season. Look at their record in the playoffs. Like, they only lost 3 games, every series in 5 or 4 games. Like, that's crazy dominant. And it's not their fault. It's not like when we talk about the 01 Lakers, we break down, who'd they get through to get there? But, so I went through and I picked who I consider the 3 best teams of all time. The 01 Lakers, the 96 Bulls, and the 17 Warriors. And so, like, the 01 Lakers, they're 16-1 in the playoffs. They go through the Scottie Pippen Blazers, the Chris Webber Kings, the Duncan and Robinson Spurs, and then beat Iverson in the finals, only losing 1 game to the Sixers. And I even double-checked that those guys played every game. Their stars were active. That's a murderer's row. The 96 Bulls go through the Mourning and Tim Hardaway Heat, the Ewing and Oakley Knicks, where they lose 1 game, Shaq and Penny, and then the Kemp and Peyton Sonics, who they win in 6 games. So they lose 3 games in that. They're 15-3. Again, all those guys played. The 16-17 Warriors, they go 17-1. Beat Dame and CJ. Round 2, not as impressive. They beat the Rudy Gobert, Gordon Hayward, Joe Johnson Jazz team. But that team had just beat the CP3 Blake Clippers and just broke that team apart. It was the last season of those guys. Conference Finals, it's the Zaza Pachulia game where he hurts Kawhi in game 1 when their Spurs are up like 20. So that ends up being, LaMarcus Aldridge, Manu Ginobili, Pau Gasol. Not crazy impressive. But then the finals is LeBron, Kyrie, and Kevin Love, who they beat in 5. So all those 3 of those teams went through like healthy rosters of gauntlets, and the Celtics just, for better or worse, they just didn't have that, and they still dropped games to, the Tyler Hero Heat and the Evan Mobley Cavs, right? It's very different when you really break down who they played.
No, you're absolutely right, and I think that's why we do need some nuance and discussion in this conversation, because just even looking at some of the platforms like ESPN, they're going over a list. I won't forget it. It was the day before Game 5. They were talking over the best teams, the top 5 teams of all time, and they're going through, and those 3 teams are also mentioned in there. And also, like I said, I'm talking about the Jazz, and then I think it was the 86 Celtics where they went on a dominant run.
Yeah, it was 85-86.
85-86 Celtics. And they were trying to squeeze out the Karl Malone team. I mean, not the Karl Malone, the Moses Malone team with Dr. J.
The 82-83?
Yes, where they lost 1 singular game going out through the playoffs. And it's just it's all the recency bias, obviously. The big media, Boston, influence that they have out there.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. I mean, we could do this on another podcast, but I wonder where it would fit. Like, I wonder if it'd even be like top 15, because, like you said, the level of competition, and as to preface, it's not their fault, like we said. But at the end of the day, if we're talking about all timers, there's just certain check marks you have to get off, and they're not doing all the boxes, in my opinion. I mean, that Pacers team injured Tyrese Halliburton going out there, not playing at 100%. I mean, we're looking at Jimmy Butler being gone on the Miami Heat. We're seeing that Donovan Mitchell had some nicks and nets. Jared Allen didn't even play, their star anchor of the team. And Luka Doncic throughout the whole series, I mean, I don't know if anybody's going to remember it in 10 years, but he had the rib stuff, the chest stuff. I mean, he was put together, it felt like, just being injected by 14 shots of cortisone right before the game. So, I mean, I don't know. We'll see if that gets remembered throughout history. We'll see if there's more of a positive or negative bias in that. But I think something that does go along with that, I wanted to ask you. This was the lowest rated finals since the 07 year, besides like the COVID years. What are some things that bring to your mind that why that could be? Is it the LeBron effect? Is it like the Dallas? Like, is there a lot of super casual NBA fans who aren't really super familiar with Luka Doncic's game? What is it?
Yeah, that's got to be a part of it where in those, especially the Cavs Warriors 5 years straight, it did just feel like, you knew there was a lot of drama built up into the finals. It felt like a really big moment. And with these two teams, it just didn't have the same kind of ring to it in terms of like rivalry expectations, which could hurt it. I also think the existence of the illegal streaming is just out of this world now, and so when a lot of guys our age just don't even have access to any sort of cable TV, they are just we're gonna log on to Stream East and see what we can find it on there. So I would like to see.
What that is. What's it?
Never heard of it. I was just kidding. I just made it up. It's not a real thing. We can bleep that out. No, so I think that's some numbers that I would want to see where, hey, maybe it's just, people aren't as, more people are actually watching than we think. But younger kids just don't want to sit down and watch a 2-hour basketball game anymore when they'll just see the highlights on Twitter a little bit later. And that is a problem that the NBA has to get over. I don't know how they're going to fix it. Part of it does just seem like people are really turned off by the ESPN announcing crews. That's a big part of it. So maybe they need to go drop a bag for Chuck Kenny and Shaq. That could help. But overall, people were just calling this series and this playoffs kind of boring. And I don't totally fault them for that.
How much of it is the actual atmosphere of the finals? This is just one of those silly things that I actually do feel like means a lot. And that's just like the actual court. I mean, if you turned on the game, would you even know that it's the finals if you didn't see in small print in the bottom right corner that it said 2024 NBA Finals with a mini-ass trophy? I mean, I miss the days. The 08 Celtics is like where I fell in love with it. And I hope I'm not just being purely nostalgic here, but like I feel like it was a big part of it to have that huge finals trophy in the middle, smack dab in the center of the court. I mean, even in 2014, I remember like distinctly Danny Green just shooting from the top of the finals like ball, like the actual and just like hitting, splashing, and be like, oh my God, is he gonna be finals MVP? He's hitting it from the fucking trophy mid court. And so it's just little things like that. Like I wonder if it adds up enough to it. I mean, there was more than enough confetti for the actual finals game. That was a fucking like
safety hazard.
Yes, that was actually like I was thinking. I was like, if you breathe one of those in, like that shit's gonna be stuck in your lungs. that confetti. But yeah, it's like the Nickelodeon Kids Choice Awards level of slime on the goddamn confetti out there. And I don't know. Did any of those play a factor with you, or is it like mainly the basketball stuff?
Yeah, part of that does have a factor where it just gets more eyeballs on it, which just feels like some bigger event. It feels like the Super Bowl. And it just didn't have that same energy. And then, especially once the Celtics went up probably 2-0 in the series and then really smacked them, really when it was 3-0 and everyone's like, okay, yeah, this is over. The Mavericks kind of get a cheap win in Game 4 and then they just finish it off. It's hard to buzz up excitement for that. It's just, it's hard. And the star power does mean something. It did seem like a lot of people were watching and talking about the Nuggets-Timberwolves series. They were excited about that one. So it also kind of comes down to, the broadcast partners really being able to sell the product. And that's where I think it speaks to having the court look different, have kind of like a different buzz around the game. Because it did just feel like a normal, NBA Monday night. It didn't feel like anything crazy.
No, it genuinely did. So I don't know. I hope that we do figure it out as like the NBA community because, me and you talk about it all the time. We want to see a world at some point, and I don't know if it's going to happen in our lifetimes, but where the NBA can be on at least the same level as the NFL. And having record numbers like this at the biggest stage is just not going to cut it for anybody at the end of the day. I mean, not the Mavericks, the Timberwolves versus Nuggets Game 7, that was one of the like highest watched games like in the last couple years. And that's just the semi-conference finals right there. So I don't know. I think there are steps in which they can take in order to go ahead and make it, more of a grand virtuoso type of thing. But I did want to ask you with the finals MVP discussion, there's been a lot of it going around. Before we talk about the actual like analysis of how people have been talking about it, did you feel like Jaylen Brown deserved it over Jason Tatum?
Yeah, I think Brown was deserving, especially just off like the vibes factor. It did seem like Brown was the most important guy the first 3 games of the series for sure. But looking back, and then you see the stats come out that Tatum led the team in points, rebounds, and assists, and you're kind of like, wait, did Tatum actually play like really good this series? He had 31 in the closeout game, 31 in game 3, and then had some, in game 2 he had, an 18-point game and, had a 15-point game in their loss. So while the vibes just didn't totally feel like it there, and Brown gets a ton of credit for guarding Luka on the other end, I think Tatum had more of a case than people were giving to him. And I think that he just kind of swallowed in the discourse of just the nonstop, the media machine just from day one being like, oh, Tatum's not actually that good. And it kind of killed him.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And it's funny because going into this series, and especially after game 1, I was one of those people saying like, hey, I think Jaylen Brown's got it right now. Let's see what happens. And then game 2 happens. Like you said, he drops that 18 bomb. Jason Tatum drops that 18 bomb. And I was still feeling like it was the Jaylen Brown show. But right before the Finals MVP was given out, I low-key was asked by the group of people I was watching. I was like, hey, do you still feel like JB's going to win it? And I really thought Tatum was going to at the end of the day, just because he was the face of the team. Like outside factors were pulling towards that Tatum's going to get this MVP. They didn't want to do another like the Iguodala, Steph Curry type of thing, because I feel like a lot of voters still feel that to this day, especially with all the shit talking. But I mean, like you said, looking at it as a whole, maybe the voters got it right, because I think the defensive aspect that Jaylen Brown brought was extremely important. He had some big-time blocks throughout this series that kind of just went under the radar. I do think Jaylen Brown does deserve a lot of credit, like you said, for guarding Luka Doncic straight up one-on-one, just the Boston Celtics philosophy. And, yeah, I mean, I'm happy with it. I'm not over here shaking my fist at the sky.
No, yeah, I'm with you where I do get the vibes argument, but it is kind of a, hey, facts don't care about your feelings finals, right? Where it's like, hey, he did lead the team in those 3 major categories. I don't know.
Did the shooting splits hurt you at all?
Yeah, that's definitely the nail in the coffin that didn't allow him to get it. And then, like, he comes out after he shoots, 6 for 22, and he's like, oh, just, trying to be unselfish and look for other things. It's like, bro, you still took the most shots on your team. Like, you were not looking to be unselfish. And then he just kills himself by being just the biggest cornball in all his celebrations, just trying to rip off every single fucking thing. Trying to do his, anything is possible impersonation. He does the Kanye speech where it's like, they want to know what we would do if we didn't win. I guess we'll never know. Bro, pick one. At least he didn't do the full Kobe fucking photo reimagining, because he knew he'd get killed for that.
So it equals out to me. I'm not mad at Tatum at all, because if he had redone that photo of holding the trophy, looking all sad, I would have been on his ass.
I hate it too, because it's such a sad moment in Kobe's life, where he's like, my family didn't come to support me. Like, yeah, I won the championship, but like I don't have like my loved ones. Like, that's not a fun thing to reenact, you fucking guys. What the fucking Kyle Kuzma. God damn it.
He's an actual goober. Fucking Kyle Kuzma. Oh, my God. So let's, before we get into our last little segment here, let's talk about the Josh Giddey trade just a little bit. I think it's hard.
I think the Bulls should be fucking taken away from their ownership.
Yeah. No, but the thing is, so it was very hard for me to separate the two. So the actual trade happening is disgusting when you preface everything behind it. I mean, you look at throughout the year, Alex Caruso being offered multiple, not just one, guaranteed multiple first-round picks throughout the year from different teams. No, we're good. We go through and we see that Zach LaVine had higher trade value. We see that DeMar DeRozan had higher trade value. But this team was content at being just absolutely ass, having one of the highest attendance ratings out of any team. And they're fucking scumbags, because they knew that they can just keep on running out here with this mediocre team and say, we made it to the playoff. We made it to the play-in right here. And you fuckfaces won't just get the nuts. Just go ahead and make a restart. And so it's hard for me not to factor in that judgment when looking at this trade. But, TJ, I want to make the argument. If we're looking at right now, after everything that happens, what you can do after being dumbasses for the last 2 years, honestly. Josh Giddey, not a huge fan. Can't shoot the ball. Can't really finish at the rim.
Can't really handle it. Can't handle it, really. He can dribble a little bit. He can dribble in the open court, but he's not blowing by guys and getting to the rack.
No, he's not blowing by anybody. His passing is pretty good. That's his bread and butter right there. His passing for sure. But I'm just confused. What do they think? Is Kobe White just going to play the 2 now? Like, is he just going to play the off ball?
That was my thing where it's like some people were making the argument like, no, Giddey does still have value. And even past him just being a scumbag, we all know about it. Like, we don't need to relitigate all that. He just doesn't – what his skills don't really fit that Bulls roster. Like, he needs to be surrounded by shooters and have some, like kind of length and defending. And they just don't fit his archetype at all. So even if you were trying to make the case that he does still have value as a player – They overpaid for him by a mile. Like his value had been so low after this playoff run where he's effectively relegated to the bench, and they end up giving him the best on the market role player in the league right now. Like the best guy that was being shopped around that everybody should want. And so now the Thunder just take an absolute minus on their team and Josh Giddey and replace him with an elite defender, a good shooter, and just an overall just a great addition to a team.
See, I think that move. I do want to talk about the OKC side, but let's stick on the Bulls for a second. I just don't understand it. Like you said,
no
the shooting
picks.
aspect.
No, how do you not get a pick out of this situation?
Bro, they have picks. OKC has picks that they could just fuck off with. Like, you couldn't have gave anybody like I think they have, what is it? Like, I think they have the Mavericks, one of their picks or something like that, like a first round pick that's going to end up being like 30 or 29. You couldn't get that?
Yeah.
You couldn't get that?
Yeah, it's malpractice. Honestly, the league, that's one of those trades where the league should have stepped in and been like, no, we're taking your team away. You can't do this. You can't fucking do
Adam
this.
Silver. But I wanted to add on to what you were saying about the shooting specifically for the team because, Josh Giddey comes from a team that does have a few stretch bigs, some people who can hit some shots. I mean, going from Jalen Williams, he can still hit the 3 ball. Shea has definitely improved over just even last season. Chet Holmgren being that stretch 5, playing with Isaiah Joe. Now we're going over to the Chicago Bulls, where we got DeMar DeRozan, a guy who's just been scared to take 3-pointers his entire career. And I think they were 29th in 3-point attempts last year. That's not going to work with this team whatsoever. And I'm sick and tired of hearing people say like, oh, but he's young, he has potential. Look, I hear it. Like, I understand that you can have potential, and there is a universe where potentially he could, be a fringe all-star guy, maybe, but not everybody just explodes. It's not 2K. You don't just add attributes every single year. That's not how this thing works. And especially being in a culture and a system like the Oklahoma City Thunder where he got to shine at a lot of points, it's not the same. It's going to be, the grass is not going to be greener on this side, Chicago. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you, man. But from the OKC side, you couldn't have done better. You could not have done better. Like, exactly what they needed. They just got like another Lou Dort.
That's so stupid. And then Caruso's not even a bad playmaker either, for his role. Like, you're not asking him to come down the court and make the offense happen. But if you put the ball in his hands, I think he's one of the best decision-making role players in the entire league, right?
Absolutely. He knows exactly what the fuck to do on every possession. And so now they're going to trot out. So who's their starting lineup going to be? SGA, Lou Dort, J-Dub, Alex Caruso, and Chet. All sub 30. All under 30. Well under, Caruso's the oldest out of the bunch, I'm pretty sure.
And I don't think OKC's done either. I think they're still going to get Nick Claxton. I just feel like that's
so then you get to bring Caruso or Dort off the bench. And one of those guys is going to, whichever one comes off the bench is winning 6th Man of the Year next year. Fucking bet it now, because they'll be the 1 seed again.
1,000%. No, I'm so excited to see it.
Yeah, they're going to be so fun to watch. They're going to be so fun to watch. They're going to be built like the Celtics team. They're following the fucking mold.
Smart on them. Chicago Bulls, you guys need to go ahead and bottom out, or you can just swap places with Ignite. I know Ignite just got relegated completely. Maybe they can go ahead and step in. I think that shit's so ridiculous.
Talk about resting on the laurels of championships that were won 30 years ago.
I know.
Get the fuck out of here, man. Get the fuck out of here.
We want to do a little quick segment at the end right here, guys. We're talking about the funniest moments in the NBA. TJ, one of mine that's kind of underrated that I hope doesn't get lost in NBA history was that Jaden McDaniels 2K dunk attempt at the end of Game 7 versus the Nuggets. We just bounced it up right here and tried to just completely yam on everybody. I thought that was hilarious. Just a big fuck you to the defending champions. Jaden McDaniels is a killer, and it's understandable because if you remember the play before, I think it was Jamal Murray who comes down and just gets like a quick bucket when the game's absolutely over and it's like a 15-point game. So he's like, all right, watch this. They've been talking shit all game. They're in their home court, and it didn't matter. I loved it.
I think no, you're 100% right. That shit was hilarious and very petty, and I'm totally here for it. We need all the pettiness we can get in these games. I think the clear cut, the top 3 spots all belong to one guy for me, and that's just Draymond.
Oh, Draymond.
We had him punch Nurkic in the face, put Rudy Gobert in a chokehold, and then go on TV and bash him during the NBA playoffs. And then we have his moment with Anthony Edwards where they're chirping going to the free throw line where he's like, you're not doing nothing. Nobody's worried about you, Draymond. All those moments. And those first 2, the choke and the punch happened in like a month span.
Like, the first month of the NBA, right?
Yes. Shout out to Draymond for all the antics because he'll never learn, and that's great content.
It's great content. It's great. I mean, I'll just never forget when you had came into town and we were watching that game against the Warriors. We were sitting there at the bar, ready to leave. It was like right before we were about to get out of there. Like, come on, we gotta go. And they say, "Oh, what the fuck? Hey, he just punched him in the face." That's like a moment I will absolutely never forget. That's a great pick right there. The guy that I thought you were going with in terms of giving the most just like content and most like digestible, like lovable moments was just any of the Ant post-game interviews.
Yeah.
I mean, I loved over and over just talking crazy to Cat, and Cat's just like, yeah. He's like, stop being a fucking idiot and stop fouling. He's like, yeah.
Or when he went, I'll take the fine. These refs weren't giving us no fucking calls. Fucking bullshit. Those ones. Nah, beautiful.
So dope.
Anything with Michael Porter Jr. on a podcast. Funny in the opposite kind of way, where Ants is endearing and you're like rooting for him. Michael Porter Jr., you're just like, bro, take his microphone.
Bro,
take away his brother's keys.
Rhodes on there? Why do you have Lana Rhodes on there?
Dude, brother, I don't know, man.
And they start doing weird stuff like fucking what? You said what word did you use?
Yes, bro.
God.
Yeah, that shit was so good, so funny. Was this year the year with LeBron's freak out at the end of the Celtics game, or was that last year? That might have been last year. Yeah, okay, never mind.
That was with Pat Bev with the camera and everything like that. I had one that I think you would like. I didn't find it funny, but I'm sure you found the Warriors just crumbling as a whole funny.
Very funny. Very funny. I felt bad for Chris Paul.
Yeah.
But everything else, I was like, yes, fuck those guys.
Bro, CP3 has just kind of faded, right? Like faded into like NBA history already that quick.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Like, is he on the team next year?
Probably.
Oh my God. I didn't hear anything about him like all year this year. Even when they played against Sacramento in that play-in, like, he wasn't really a factor.
No, yeah, it's kind of sad. Just a guy that was so dominant our whole lives. Yeah, I hope that he can find some success, maybe find some solace, maybe he can be an assistant to JJ Redick's Lakers.
Hey,
something like that.
I actually wouldn't mind that.
Yeah, so who knows? But that, funny in a sad way.
Yeah, I mean CP3. I mean, maybe if you stretch a little bit more, unless the State Farm commercials, go ahead and be healthy for all those times. But one that I had that I didn't really want to do anymore after what we talked about earlier was I just say Monty Williams getting an absolute bag again to go around and lose 28 games in a row and get fired. It's funny for Detroit. It's funny for Detroit.
It is. That is such a Detroit thing to do. And to immediately just jump ship and to just fire him after the first year too. That's ridiculous. They're already. Is Monty still also cashing checks from the Suns? I'm pretty sure he's still getting those checks too.
So, he has 2 or 3 more years with the Suns.
That's fucking awesome. Good for him, man. I know he would probably trade that for a lot of things in his life right now, but good for him.
Still, that's a. If anything could be compensation to that, that's getting there. Nothing can, but getting paid like that, that's amazing.
But then, my final funny moment was just Bronny measuring in at 6'1". was I think the kind of the cherry on the cake for just the whole LeBron Bronny experience. Him in post-game press conferences saying, "Oh, Bronny could play for us right now. He could start for us. I see these teams. Well, oh, it's light work. He'll be tearing up this league next year." And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, the mock drafts come out. Let's not put too much pressure on him. Leave him alone. He's just a kid. Bro, you put the pressure on him, and now we know him for who he truly is. And he's just not that good of a basketball player. He spent a lot more time on fucking Twitch than he did in the gym. And that's just facts. All due respect. All due respect. Bronny has a great life. He will continue to have a great life. He will do great things in this world. He's not going to do great things in the NBA.
Son of a billionaire. Let's go ahead and see if you can do it. My nepotism baby. Well, thank you guys so much for watching this episode of the Bright Now Podcast, episode 47 in the books. We'll be getting back more on the grind. TJ, I know you're going to be gone for a big chunk of July, but we'll be as consistent as we can be right here throughout the Bright Now Podcast. Going to be some delicious offseason stuff that's already been creeping up on us with that Josh Giddey trade, so I'm excited to go ahead and cover more of that. We do want to talk about some maybe more historical, maybe some rankings, talk about some underrated sleeper teams throughout NBA history. But it's going to be exciting times. And thank you guys so much for watching this episode. And as always, y'all have a phenomenal rest of your day.